In 475 BC, a Chinese fish farmer named Fan Li wrote something that would change how civilizations fed themselves for the next 2,000 years. His treatise, the Yang Yu Jing, described a method so efficient that a single installation could produce more protein per square foot than cattle ranching, more nutrition per acre than any industrial farm. And once you built it, it would feed your family for decades without buying feed, without permits, without depending on anyone. Fan Li's method survived wars, dynasties, and empires because the knowledge was too valuable to lose. But in America, most people have never heard of backyard pond aquaculture, even though it has fed more humans throughout history than any other protein system on Earth. That silence is not accidental. Today, we are building Fan Li's regenerative ecosystem in your backyard. By the time you finish, you will have a self-replicating protein factory that feeds itself, manages itself, and produces more food than your family can consume. And in 10 years, when your neighbors are worried about food prices and supply chains, you will walk out to your pond and feel a calm that no amount of money can buy. But first, you need to understand what happened to this knowledge. The foundation started around 3500 BC along China's Yellow River. Farmers realized that if they deepened the natural depressions left by seasonal floods, trapped carp would stay, reproduce, and provide food on demand. It was an elegant partnership with nature. But the real breakthrough came in the 7th century AD during the Tang dynasty. The emperor's family name was Li, the exact same name as the common carp, Li. Out of respect, or perhaps superstition, the emperor banned the farming of common carp. Farmers faced a massive crisis, but instead of starving, they innovated. They began raising multiple species in the exact same pond. Mud carp fed on the bottom sediments, silver carp filtered algae in the middle, grass carp ate surface plants, and bighead carp ate zooplankton. Because each species occupied a different ecological niche, there was zero competition and zero waste. This accidental policy created the world's first true polyculture system. It was a stacked, self-regulating ecosystem that fed itself. When European settlers eventually arrived in America, they brought cattle, pigs, and chickens, animals requiring constant feeding, fencing, and exhausting labor. The idea of a pond that managed itself seemed too primitive to them, so the knowledge was buried. Backyard ponds became decorative koi ponds for the wealthy. It wasn't until the 1960s that scientists at Auburn University tested these ancient methods. They built tiny test ponds, just 1,000 square feet, about the size of a modest above-ground pool. Using these ancient polyculture techniques, they documented yields of up to 350 pounds of fish. To put that in perspective, a quarter acre of cattle pasture produces about 200 pounds of beef per year, demanding constant feed and vet care. These small ponds produced nearly double the protein, using 1/10 of the space with almost zero inputs. But the momentum stopped. There were no government subsidies, because the moment you install a productive pond in your backyard, you stop buying meat from the $200 billion industrial system. But once you understand the biology, the ecosystem builds itself. Here is exactly how it works. The pond is not just fish. The fish are only one piece of a 4-part living system. First, you have the ducks. In traditional polyculture, the ducks are the biological managers. As they swim, they stir up bottom sediments, releasing nutrients. When they defecate, they add nitrogen directly into the water. That nitrogen feeds algae, which feeds zooplankton, which feeds the fish. In return, the ducks eat insects and aquatic plants. It's a closed loop. A small flock of 3 to 5 khaki Campbell ducks will also give you between 840 and 1,700 eggs annually. And because they forage up to 30% of their diet directly from the pond, your feed costs are slashed. You are stacking functions. Second, you have the plants. Aquatic vegetation is the kidneys and lungs of your pond. A ring of cattails around the shallow edges pulls excess nitrogen and phosphorus out of the water, preventing algae blooms. Submerged plants like hornwort release critical oxygen, while floating duckweed acts as a miracle food. Under optimal conditions, duckweed doubles its biomass in less than 48 hours. Ducks eat it as fast as it grows, creating a free, self-renewing food source. Third, you have the fish. For most of the U.S., bluegill and channel catfish are your best, most legal options. Bluegill requires zero care. Stock them once, and they reproduce on their own, reaching harvestable size in about 2 years. Channel catfish grow faster, hitting 1 to 2 pounds within 18 months. Tilapia grow the fastest, reaching a pound in just 5 to 6 months, yielding 40 to 50 pounds of meat from just 50 fingerlings. But check your local laws, as tilapia are illegal in some states due to their invasive nature in warm climates. And fourth, beneficial bacteria. These are the invisible workers. They convert toxic fish waste, ammonia, into nitrites and then into nitrates that the plants absorb. This nitrogen cycle is the backbone of the entire ecosystem. Once established, it balances itself. You aren't managing a farm, you are stewarding a living system. So how do you actually build this, and what does it cost? For a family-scale homestead system, your total setup cost is around $400 to $600. That covers an EPDM rubber pond liner, fingerlings, ducklings, and plants. Compare that to a decade of buying meat at the grocery store. First, choose a low-lying location that gets at least 6 hours of sunlight daily, but not full sun all day. Mark out a space roughly 10 by 15 feet and dig it 4 to 5 feet deep in the center. Crucially, create a shallow shelf, about 1 foot deep and 2 to 3 feet wide around the edges. This is your marsh zone for the plants. If you have heavy clay soil, you can line it naturally with 6 inches of wet, compacted clay. For sandy or rocky soil, drop in an EPDM liner, which lasts 20 to 30 years. Fill it up, and if you're using municipal water, let it sit for a week so the chlorine evaporates. Now, introduce life in stages. Start with the plants. Let them sit for 2 to 4 weeks so roots can take hold and your beneficial bacteria can colonize. After a month, add your ducks. 2 to 5 is perfect. The water will cloud slightly as they stir the bottom. This is normal. The ecosystem is waking up. After another month, introduce your fish. Stock about 50 fingerlings per 1,000 gallons. They will disappear into the deep, dark water for weeks. Do not panic and do not add more fish. For the first 6 months, do almost nothing. Watch the ducks, pull out excess duckweed if it takes over the surface, and top off the water during dry spells. No feeding schedules, no chemicals. By month 6, you'll see flashes of silver as the fish grow. By the end of year 1, the ducks are laying dozens of eggs a month, and you are approaching your first fish harvest. By year 3, you are no longer managing a project. You are simply harvesting from an ecosystem that has woven itself into your land. Now, what about winter? Most backyard guides ignore this. If your pond freezes, your fish can survive under the ice as long as you maintain a small opening for gas exchange. A simple $40 pond de-icer will do the trick. Bluegill and catfish will enter a dormant state and survive for months. Tilapia, however, cannot survive below 50 degrees Fahrenheit and must be harvested before winter. Your ducks are cold hardy and will keep laying if you give them a simple 3-sided coop with straw bedding. And here is the secret most guides won't tell you. In most states, ponds under 1 acre do not require permits or government approval. You are simply collecting rainwater and managing it on your own property. You don't need anyone's permission to build this. This is what Fan Li understood 2,500 years ago. This is what the industrial food system has spent a century trying to make you forget. You do not need their supply chains. You do not need to depend on systems that can fail. You need water, sun, a hole in the ground, and the patience to let biology do what it has always done. 10 years from now, your neighbors will be anxious about food prices, about shortages, about instability. You will walk out to your edible pond, cast a line, pull a healthy fish, collect a basket of warm eggs, and feel something most people have forgotten. Sovereignty. Not the loud kind that announces itself. the quiet kind that does not need to, because you have built something that cannot be taxed, regulated, or taken away. You have built independence. If this opens something for you, if you can see yourself standing by that pond 10 years from now, subscribe so you do not miss the next system we uncover. Share this with someone who is ready to stop asking permission. The knowledge is here. The choice is yours. The pond is waiting.